Nina Owens dabbled in various occupations, including photographer, folk musician, and writer, is now retired after 30 years as a highway construction inspector. She has been active in various causes since high school, including political campaigns, veterans' rights, organic gardening, alternative health, freedom, and constitutional rights. She has also spent many years involved with the Philadelphia Folk Song Society that strives to preserve our musical American heritage, for it is through many old songs that our history is told. While studying as an English major in college, she developed a love for research and news and has worked with various organizations over the years, including this show, the Global Freedom Report, where she was our main news correspondent. Nina Owens, welcome to the Global Freedom Report. It's great to have you, Nina. How are you?
It's great to be here, Brett. I'm really happy to be here with you today.
And to those who've listened to the show for a while, you'll remember Nina as the correspondent for the Patriot Network News in a previous incarnation of the show. And when we came back on in June, she was involved in the folk music festival and was not able to devote the time to it. But I'm so glad to have you on before we actually take the show off the air. And in particular, you came on because you wanted to talk about preparedness. Now, how did you become interested in preparedness? Did something in particular happen to you that you realized you were not prepared for it? I mean, what inspired you to become involved with preparedness?
It was actually around the time that everybody was upset about the Y2K bug. And I started thinking, and I was reading a lot of articles on all different sides, and I thought, it might not be a bad idea to be prepared just in case something happens. Now, my parents were also good at preparing for a lot of things, but I wanted to go beyond that. And I did things like install a generator in my house. I learned how to improve my gardening skills. I learned how to improve my canning and other food preservation skills. And along the way, I just started amassing different things and hoping that when anything happened, I would be prepared. And this last storm that we had, Hurricane Sandy, brought out a few things that I hadn't thought about being prepared. So that's a couple of the things I want to talk about today.
Well, now, have you ever found it frustrating? Like, I too was very prepared for Y2K, okay, and of course nothing happened. Have you ever found it frustrating being well prepared for a non-event?
No, not at all, because all of that preparation many, many years ago, for instance, the generator, I actually have it so I can plug in and flip the switch in the basement, and run most of the stuff in the house. It's a big unit. And I've used that many times. We have lost our power quite a few times here. The gardening skills, I don't have to shop for genetically modified food because I've improved all of those skills. So it's not something that just because you did it once for some event that didn't happen doesn't mean that you won't need those skills or those items in the future. And it's proven itself time and time again with me.
Okay, now, when we talk about preparedness, what situation or set of circumstances are we supposed to, for what situation or set of circumstances are we supposed to prepare in general when we talk about that?
In general, it seems to be most of the events that require having preparation, at least recently, have been weather events. We saw with Katrina, Sandy, snowstorms, et cetera, but you should also be prepared for any civil unrest that might happen. You have to be able to not only be prepared to take care of yourself, but also to defend yourself, too.
Okay, now let's start with acts of God, such as the superstorm Hurricane Sandy, though there was strong evidence suggesting a possibility that Sandy was helped along by acts of men. But how might people prepare for such an unprecedented storm? And you even mentioned that you learned some things that you weren't quite ready for. What did you learn from this?
Let me start. First of all, our power went out right from the beginning, and we were out over 5 days. But one thing we did before that storm even came, and we had not run the generator. If you have a generator and you have not run it in a long time, you better take it out, put a little gas in it, and see if it runs. We found out we had a clog in it, and it's a good thing we were able to fix it then, and if we had to go out for parts and fix it, because if we had let it sit and go to fire it up, we would have been in trouble. Now, the other thing is, if you have a generator, make sure you have the spare parts, like the different types of fuel filters, oil filters, etc., in case you need to replace it. The other thing, make sure you have enough gasoline on hand. If it's a gasoline generator, or if you're running on propane, make sure your tanks are filled, because you do not want to run out. You need to have at least 3 to 5 days of fuel in your cans or in your tank. And another thing, if you have vehicles before that storm or whatever hits or disaster, make sure those tanks are filled, because you can always siphon the gas out of that. Now, one thing that was unexpected that happened to us, we fired up the generator one morning. We're not running it completely overnight. We find that we have no water. Our water pump system wasn't running, and luckily at that point, there were some stores starting to open that we could fix that. So we learned from that, okay, we better be prepared in case the water pump doesn't work even with the generator. And one of the things I found out, I did fill my bathtub the night before, when we turned the generator down in case we needed water overnight. I didn't plug in well enough and all the water drained out. So if you do that, make sure your water doesn't drain out. One other thing I noticed, I was getting ready for this because they warned us ahead of time that this is going to be bad, the power's going to go out. I went to the store to get a few extra things, and I'm noticing what other people are doing. And what are they doing? They're buying perishable foods. Don't buy perishable foods if you know there's a chance that the power's going to go out. And I'm thinking to myself, okay, you people are really being ridiculous here. You should have canned food or something you could heat over a little fire, like a protein stove or something like that. So that's another thing people have to make sure they have. And if you have pets, make sure you have a supply to feed all of your pets. Another thing, a lot of people during this hurricane that did lose their homes or they had a lot of water in, everybody has a lot of important papers. Keep those papers in some sort of a waterproof safe or box, something you can grab and go in case you have to get out in a hurry. That's another thing, because if you don't have those items and you lost everything, well, you really lost everything.
One other thing, if you're going to advocate that people have canned goods on hand, make sure you have canned openers.
Oh, absolutely. These are all the little things you have to think of when you are getting prepared. And, it seems like so many people, even though they knew many days ahead of time, and you'll see this during snowstorms, what do they do at the last minute? They run to the store, and what do they buy? Toilet paper, eggs, and milk. Well, first of all, the eggs and milk are going to go bad, and the other one, why didn't you have toilet paper stashed to begin with? You watch what people do, and it kind of drives you nuts. It is always good to be prepared for any situation.
Yeah, people tend not to think more than a few hours ahead of themselves, and which is why so few people are prepared. What about what most people consider to be an imminent economic collapse? Would preparation for something like that be along similar lines, or would you have to? Would there be other considerations for how do you prepare for when the money is no longer there?
Well, one thing that was brought up during up in New York, I saw several articles. People that were on the food stamp card and they went to go out and buy food when the things started coming up, but the ATMs weren't running. Stores were dealing only in cash. What are those people going to do? They have no cash in their house. All they have is that useless card. Somehow, stash some cash in your house. Somehow, a change book, stash dollar bills, do something so that if that does come up, and you can't use a credit card, a debit card, if you have the food stamp card or whatever, you have some cash on hand in case you need to buy something. Also, keep items on hand in case there is an economic collapse that you can barter. A lot of things are good for bartering. Let's see, we've got, well, like I said, toilet paper's a good one. Salt, you know, a lot of other things.
Can openers, soap is good.
Yep, all of that stuff. And also have on hand canned food, or if you're into buying the MREs or the dehydrated food, it's a good thing to do that. Or if you can learn to dehydrate your own food, because that food will keep for a very, very, very long time. If you can't afford to buy those, you know, the expensive meals, get a small dehydrator, start buying food a little bit at a time. You know, go to the store, buy, let's say, some grapes and dehydrate them. Buy some kind of vegetables, dehydrate them, and just stash them in little airtight jars, and that stuff will keep for a long time. And all you got to do is add water to it to rehydrate it, and you have yourself some food to eat. You know, those are the little things to have on hand, and during an economic collapse, you have all these things, and let's say you lose your job, you'll have something to feed yourself. You have a little bit of change or whatever stashed, okay, you have cash in case you need to deal. You have barterable items if it gets down to that point. You have to think ahead, folks.
How about political upheaval? Many believe that dictator Obama will further encroach on the God-given freedoms of the American people. Is there anything that people can do to prepare for a new and very different America of this sort?
That's a tough one. It gets to the point where the political upheaval is so bad, like we're seeing in Spain and Portugal and all those places in the European Union right now where they're rioting. You've got to be able to defend yourself and your family. So it's a good thing to have on hand some sort of a defense, whether you're into firearms or crossbows or archery or, you know, or whatever. You have to have some way to defend yourself. And if it gets to the point where you need to bug out, you need to have the items that you're going to be able to use to get out if you have to escape from a situation like that, especially if you are living in a city. You have got to be able to survive through a situation like that, or have the escape plan to get out of a situation like that. As I said before, you've really got to think this all the way through. It's not easy, I will tell you. It's not easy.
Well, now, what about somebody who's just new to preparedness, somebody who hasn't done anything at all? Okay, how do you get started? I mean, where do you start? Do I start with, you know, firearms? Do I start with canned food? I mean, I don't know anything at all. How do I get started?
I would think the first thing to do is do a little bit of each one of the things that I had mentioned. But the food, okay, if something happens and you can't get out, at least you have something to eat. The next one, I would definitely go and get something to protect yourself, whether it's firearms or whatever else you want to get to protect yourself, some mace, pepper spray, I don't know, whatever you want. That would be second. But those are the two. And water, don't forget water. That's very important. Whether you get a water filter or you have a bottle stash or whatever, you've got to be able to survive with water, with food, and protection. I would say those are the three things. And if you're just getting started, go to the store, get a few cans of something. A little bit every time you go out. Get a little bit of something and stash it. Tools. If there's certain tools, you know, well, I'm thinking about getting this in case such and such happens. Get that. Get all the little things that you're going to need bit by bit. If you have the means, if you have the money, do a lot of things all at once. Go out and do it if you haven't prepared. If you don't have a lot of money or a lot of means to do it, you just can do it a little bit at a time. Seeds. Buy seeds. If you have to grow things in containers out on your porch, if you have to grow things under grow lights and you're living in an apartment, sprouting seeds, there's another one. Seeds that you can sprout. And you need them, and they provide, you have that green food, and they provide protein, they provide a lot of other things. That's a minimal thing that you can do right there, and you'll have something to eat.
Now, let's back up to water for a moment. Well, one of the big challenges with water is if you have to be on the move, water is extremely heavy. Now, obviously, if you're able to hunker down, having bottles of water is a great thing. But is there anything you can do to provide for the possibility that you may have to be on the move? You certainly can't be out there carrying bottles of water. It will weigh you down very quickly.
I do know that they have the little bottles. I believe it's the Berkey Company. I can't remember off the top of my head. It's a water filter bottle. It's the size of a little drinking bottle. And wherever you go, you can pour water in it, and it will filter it. I mean, let's say you had to find out, okay, you have a couple of small bottles of water in your backpack, but you have this. And as you're going wherever, you could get rainwater, you can get stream water, pond water, whatever, and put it through this thing. So I would recommend that everybody have a little portable filter that they can take with them.
Yeah, that's good. And I believe there are also the iodide tablets that are designed to purify water as well.
There's another thing out there. It's called a life straw. It's I'm trying to remember. The man that invented it, it's a very small device, and basically kind of like a straw in a bottle, which is similar to the larger bottle I was describing. That they use that when they go in areas, let's say in Africa, where there's been a disaster or something happened, like the Red Cross will use the thing. So they have become very popular for rescue people to use when they're in a situation like that.
Are there any organizations or websites you could recommend that help people who are interested in learning more about preparedness?
One of the best ones I've discovered recently is called survivalblog.com. I really like that one, and there are a lot of others, and I can't recall them off the top of my head. I would go to the search engine and look, but that has a lot of good stuff on that website. I really like that one.
Survivalblog.com.
Yeah.
Now, is there a way people could get in touch with you? Would you be willing to be available to anyone with preparedness-related questions?
Yeah. I can give my alternate email address, which is campeureka, the numeral 2, @gmail.com.
Okay, it's Camp Eureka. Eureka is E-U-R-E-K-A. Camp Eureka, number 2, @gmail.com.
Correct.
Excellent. Excellent. Well, we really appreciate your taking time to go over this. This is such an important issue, and frankly, I think most people are ill-prepared. Like you said, they wait to the last minute, then they go to the store to get a few things, and I don't think people have any idea what it will be like if you go for a week with stores being shut down, much less longer times.
And it's still going on up in New York. There's still areas up there that are without anything. And one other thing I want to add, one of my neighbors had a house down the Jersey Shore that full of water. They let them down there once, and now they're not allowed back for 6 months.
Wow. Nina Owens, thank you so much. It's been an absolute pleasure. It's felt like old home week to have you here on the Global Freedom Report. God bless you. Keep it up, and we'll give out that email again, campeureka2 @gmail.com. Bless you.